Okay, this is a curveball. I'm going to put it in 23 Psalm 90 playlist because that's technically more about the Hebrew, but in the episode 10 of GGS playlist, beginning between E9 and E12, I'm going to be talking about the tie between Moses, Isaiah, Daniel, and Paul. I knew there was a tie, but I didn't know until a couple of, over the weekend, that the tie was this great. You see before you Daniel's prayer, and you'll be able to download this. You won't be able to, I'm going to put it in PDF format so that you can read the fonts. They do not wrap well in Word, so it'll be in PDF format. And then don't go by the name here, go by the name in the links. I'll have to come up with another name. Okay, this is about as shocking as it gets. I don't know if I'm ever going to recover from this. I keep thinking to God, oh, you should kill me. I'm going to walk you through how Daniel is tying to Isaiah and Moses, but I can't possibly cover all the connections. I'm just going to, wing it here and trust you to be familiar enough now with the Hebrew in both Psalm 90 and Isaiah, at least the Hebrew parsing numbers, to do some legwork on your own. Okay? It's like 4 o'clock in the morning now, and I won't be able to work on this again until next week. So this will give you something to do. I titled the video Preterism is Toast because that's exactly what this prayer proves. Daniel is, I don't know how many people really understand what Daniel was doing, but he was trained to be an official in the State Department and ended up running Babylon for the king. And then when Cyrus took over, he ended up running Babylon under the Medes and the Persians. So he was real good at legal language. He was real good at numbers. You have to be if you have an official capacity. All right? And Daniel's prayer to many of us, including me too, is like too wordy. It's like, what is all this extra words for? He could have said it in fewer words. Well, the reason why he's saying it in the words he's saying it is because it's metered. He's making legal arguments that are based on God's rules for time to justify restoring Jerusalem and the temple first. And I want you to notice this. This is real important. The scholars do not know about this. I didn't know about it either until just last week. See this clause here? That's the first verse in Daniel's prayer. And he's using it to date when he speaks it. He speaks it in the 49th year of the time the temple went down. In other words, this is the beginning of the 49th year that the temple has been down. The beginning. Now, of course, Daniel 9:1 told you the same thing. But the Bible has this habit of giving you the same date in many different ways so that you can check your math. The Bible's dates are always self-auditing. And the reason why people debate them today or are confused is because they're not doing their homework. And here it's the scholars, I mean every single denomination, who have egg on their face. Because when you're 5 years old, I don't care what language you learn to count a syllable. Okay? You got a consonant and you got a vowel, and that's a syllable. And sometimes it's two consonants because it begins and ends. Okay, like, let me find one real quickly here. You got something here that, not exactly there. Let's look here. Here. You got one syllable that begins and ends with a vowel. Begins and ends with a consonant. Here, the letter M. See that little dot? That's called a dagesh. In the middle of the M, that means you're supposed to read it as if there were two of them. So you read this mim. Okay? All right, that's how you pronounce it. You pronounce it mim because you know there's two M's there. One M belongs to this M, and the other M belongs to the next syllable. Okay? Everybody has a rule like that in his language. Okay, so why didn't the scholars count the syllables? They know that the Jews have a mania about it. When they copy their manuscripts, they count the syllables, they count the words, and all the pastors learn in seminary to count words, and they go by word count. Okay, these are the most frequent words in the Bible. And there's a guy named Pennington, you can buy this at Amazon, who did a CD where he pronounces the Greek words in order of their frequency of occurrence. Every single piece of Bible software has something that measures the frequency of occurrence. For a lot of reasons you need to know that. Okay? And every single book of the Bible has got it registered as to how many books it is, how many words are in the book. And the reason to do that is to account for, to audit, whether or not you have a complete copy. Okay, so did everybody's brains just turn off when it came to the Hebrew Bible and say, oh, we're not going to count the syllables, they can't mean anything? Yeah, anti-Semites would make that conclusion. And the preterists, honey, if you're a preterist, you are toast. Absolute toast because of this. Okay? And you know what? All I can do is show you the math, and then you'll conclude whatever you want to conclude. But anybody who's a preterist is anti-Semitic and should be shot. I'm sorry. You didn't do your homework in the syllables that every 5-year-old Jewish kid learns. Alright, enough of being nasty, because all the dispies got egg on their face too, because they're just as guilty as the preterists. They didn't count the syllables either. How many people have debated when was Daniel written? Okay, he's telling you right here. I'm praying in the 49th year, at the beginning of the 49th year after temple destruction. He's following the exact same convention that Moses used in Moses 9d, in Psalm 90 verses 1 through 3, which ends up being 63 syllables, which represents the 63rd 7 from the beginning of their captivity in Egypt, which we know when that happened because we have Exodus 12:40 through 41, and we know that they were in captivity the last 400 years of that time. Okay, so it's real easy to know when Moses wrote. It's real easy to know when Daniel wrote. We even get those dates right sometimes, usually, often, in our history books. 1400 BC is 40 years after 1440 BC, and we used to know 50 years ago that was when the Exodus happened. When many scholars know that 586 BC is when the temple went down. The Jews have kind of forgotten that. They think it went down later, according to their current calendar. But that's beside the point. The point is that the Bible records the right date. Right here. 49, beginning of the 49th year, which means 48 years have elapsed from the time the temple was destroyed on 9th Av. Okay? 49 is divisible by 7. So he's making a statement, hi, this is what I'm writing. Okay? And then he's confessing his own sins, and then he's praying. Because he knows it's the right time to pray, because this is the 49th year. Because Israel had missed 49 sabbatical years, and he's praying now because by the end of the year, it's going to take that long for people to assemble and go back under the decree of Cyrus, which is issued right after Daniel's prayer. And you can read the whole story in Ezra. Okay? So, he confesses. Now look at this. And I'm going to start going fast now. 24 is the number of syllables that Moses uses in Psalm 90 verses 1 or 2. Okay? Look at the contrast between, I'm using NIV translation here. Look at the contrast between this actor talking and Moses talking. In other words, we should have been saying what Moses wrote in those 24 syllables of either verse. But instead, we have to do this. Is that sad or what? And then here comes our poignant 40. 40, does that ring a bell? 40 years in the wilderness? Okay. Oh, I forgot to mention, Paul's going to pick up on this total, the 73. He's going to pick up on it at the beginning of verse 5 in Ephesians 1:5. He's going to tie back to this. Because 73 is the year that he was expecting the temple to be taken down. Okay, and I'll go through that when I go through Paul. Okay, we call it 70 AD, but bear in mind that our AD accounting chops off 3 years, so Paul's is better. Paul's accounting is better. Okay, so we have sinned and done wrong. That's total of 73 syllables. This verse is 24. This is divisible by 7 when it's orange. Okay, 40 syllables later. Okay, we have not listened. Is that 40 meaningful or not? Okay, and this aggregate syllable count, as far as I know, doesn't mean anything yet. Okay, then we come here. 69, does that ring a bell? 69 weeks. You see, when the angel comes to answer Daniel, the angel is answering Daniel's accounting meter. Daniel is the one going by Isaiah 53, and in particular here, and I'll explain that in a minute, which means he comes up with the 69 weeks because the 7 is missing. You know, remember when I showed you in the Isaiah videos? And in the Isaiah video, I made a big stink about Isaiah's syllable 133. That's in the Isaiah Future Calendar video. That's at the beginning of the Psalm 90 playlist. Isaiah was balancing between Isaiah 52:15 and the end of Isaiah 53:2. Yeah, covered with shame. That's in Isaiah 52:15. 52:14 rather. Okay. We are covered with shame because we shamed Christ, see? We put him up to shame. 133 syllables in Isaiah ties from Isaiah 52:13 to the end of Isaiah 53:2. We're just talking about our reaction to him. Yeah, he's righteous and we are covered with shame. We're all guilty. Yeah, and Isaiah was saying we'll be guilty then too, when Christ actually comes. So Daniel's invoking Isaiah 53. And then, of course, 182 is half a year. That's pretty pregnant when you consider that he's going to be told in Daniel 9:27 how half of a year is divided. Half of a 7 is divided. Okay? Because 1 year represents the whole period. It represents the whole idea as well. Okay. Then we get here. 30. 30 is the number of the Savior. David became king at 30. Joseph became vizier at 30. Christ announces himself at 30. So he's tying to kings. So that's why the verse is about kings. And that's why it's 30 syllables. Okay? I don't know if 212 means anything. I haven't analyzed this all together yet. 21, we've seen that number many times. That's the number of years that the temple was down after they were in the land, from 538 BC when Daniel was praying to 521 BC when they start rebuilding. And bear in mind, it's in the middle of the year. Okay, actually that includes the time that they were rebuilding from 521 to 516 also. God thinks of everything. I really just can't survive this. Anyway, going on. 233, I don't know if that means anything. Okay, merciful and forgiving certainly ties to the years that Israel is in the land rebuilding. Okay? Text always ties to the numbers. This is not Bible codes, okay? Alright, 36, I'm not sure what that means. Okay, I have to look it up. Paul references 37, so I might be a syllable off here. Paul references 37 out of the clear blue sky, which happens to tie to 37 AD, but then that begs a lot of questions. So I'm not sure what this is. This is the ending aggregate syllable count at that point. And I'm sure you've guessed by now that these pink numbers are per clause. Okay, I had to sort of, sometimes the clause I didn't feel comfortable breaking it where I did, but I did it anyway. You might want to change where I broke it. Okay, here we come to one of the most pregnant statements that I fell over when I saw this. 58 and 58. What is 58? 58 is the number of days from Passover beginning to Pentecost if you count both the beginning date and the ending date. In other words, you count Passover, which is the 14th, and you count Pentecost, which is 57 days later. Okay, if you count only one of those 2 days, you got a 57. If you're counting between the 2 days, you got a 56. So, look at this. All Israel has transgressed your law and turned away. By making this 58, he's stressing the fact they didn't observe Passover. And they didn't. The Old Testament is full of a lot of stories that are really heartbreaking about how Hezekiah observed the Passover for the first time in years. Josiah didn't even know the law was in the temple. Of course, that was just after Manasseh. And Josiah found out, what's this book? Oh, it's the Bible. Oh, really? What does it say? And then when he heard it, it broke his heart, just like it did Hezekiah. Okay, they weren't celebrating the Passover, okay? So Daniel is making a big point about that because they weren't observing the sabbatical years either. But see, all Israel's transgressed your law and turned away. So he's stressing Passover, most important holiday in Judaism, they didn't care about. And look at this. This is really important. I fell over when I saw this. 58. From Passover to Pentecost, if you count both the beginning and the ending days. Now, if you also count from Pentecost, counting it, all the way to 9th Av, which is the famous day the temple fell twice, you get 58. Israel's calendar today is all screwed up compared to the way it was under David. Daniel is going by the calendar the way it was under David. Under David, every month had 30 days. Otherwise, the priestly courses wouldn't work. There were 24 priestly courses, and each priest was supposed to relieve each prior priest 2.625 hours later than the last relief. Okay? And that way, all the priests would have had equal time on a solar year. Israel has no clue about that today. Yeah, but Daniel knew. Okay, 58. 58 on a 30-day per month. 30-day per month calendar with Adar getting the extra 5 or 6 days, depending on when the next vernal equinox ran. Otherwise, Israel would miss her birthday, and of course, she's missing her birthday now. She's not getting her birthday right, because she's supposed to start her calendar every year, and it's supposed to stay solar on the vernal equinox. And the 14th day after the vernal equinox is her birthday every year. So if you want to observe her birthday properly every year, just find out when the vernal equinox is in this year, okay, the coming year for 2011, and then count 14 days, and that's her birthday. See, Israel could fix her calendar overnight, but won't. Now, here's the most pregnant part of this. Remember I said back to back, from Passover to 9th Av when the temple goes down. You have fulfilled the word spoken against us. Could it be more pregnant, the text? All Israel has transgressed your law. You have fulfilled the word spoken against us. Yeah, twice. When Titus, in what we call 70 AD, which we should call 73 AD, when Titus came to take over Jerusalem and kill the temple, he started it on Passover and he ended it on 9th Av, according to the Jews, which means their calendar was in arrears by about 2 weeks at that time. Because history, like in Military History Magazine, 1995, December, says that in our terms, the calendar was on August 28th and 29th when the temple was burnt down by Titus, who needed to make a gift to his daddy, the newly appointed Emperor Vespasian, in the year of the 4 emperors. Now, as if I hadn't said enough, 385, you know what that is? That's the number of syllables in Isaiah 53, starting in Isaiah 53:1. Is this a killer or what? You know what 203 is? 203 is the number of syllables in Isaiah 53. In Hebrew, still, I mean, this is in Hebrew also, but it starts at Isaiah 53:1. But this syllable count, 203, starts at Isaiah 52:13 and ends when? At the end of Isaiah 53:4, which in Isaiah's annual tracking is the very year the temple goes down, 586 BC. Yeah, you have fulfilled the word spoken against us. See, Daniel was counting his syllables. He's referencing both points, the whole of Isaiah 53, starting in 53:1 when Isaiah's own report began, because the first 77 syllables are talking about the past David, because he's reconciling to David, and 203 syllables are talking about the time from Isaiah 52:13 all the way to the time Isaiah was tracking the end of the temple in 586 BC. He starts that annual tracking in Isaiah 53:1, which obviously Daniel knew. But the syllable count of 203 takes into account the entire Isaiah 53, beginning at 52:13 in Hebrew. What we call 52:13, but in Hebrew. Okay, see, he's tracking. And then he's tracking the content. This is how they talk to each other. This is how all these passages talk to each other. And Daniel's doing the same thing we saw in Psalm 90 versus Isaiah 53, and what we're going to see in Paul. You know, Daniel's basically Act 3 of a 4-act play. I'm just showing you how he's tracking it. And then we come to our very pregnancy. Those 62 weeks in English are out of thin air. See, 49, we don't know what the 49 represents. See how he's doing 49? See how pregnant it is when Gabriel answers him in Daniel 9:25? Hi, 49, 7 sevens, and 62 sevens. He's talking right back to this verse. He's talking right back to this prayer right here. God is answering him syllable for syllable. Preterist scholars don't know that, do they? Yeah, because the Jews don't mean anything. Yeah, Jewish dispensationalism, they don't even know anything about it. They think dispensationalism was an invention of the 19th century. What a bunch of putzes. You see, Gabriel's answer in Daniel 9:25 is talking straight back to the meter count here. Got that? And of course it's divisible by 7. Duh. Okay, and then we have 42. Have you heard of 42 before? Oh yeah, Revelation 11 and a bunch of other places talk about 42 months, the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, or the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. Yeah, Daniel therefore is recognizing it going to happen, okay? And that leads to 476. Because why? Because it's going to be part of the 490 that Gabriel's going to tell him about. Remember, 7 is in Daniel 9:27, and half of the week when thing happens, and then the other half of the week something else happens. See, so Gabriel's also answering Daniel 9:14 in meter. And guess what? What is 476 total? 476 is 14 short of 490. 14. You ever heard that number before? Huh? Preterism is toast. There are 2 sevens missing, and they're solar. Solar year accounting, not lunar. If you use lunar year accounting, you won't catch the other 7. Because 483 solar years are in 490 lunar years. But the Bible never, ever, 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 ever once accounts in lunar years. The Jews do that. And that's why they don't know what time it is. And instead of going back to the Bible, their timeline is all screwed up. And Josephus' numbers are completely wrong in his Antiquities and his Wars of the Jews. Completely wrong. Nobody's reading the Bible. This is inexcusable that we can't count our syllables. Okay? That's all I did here is count the syllables. And Daniel's prayer is very formal. So there's not really very much ellipsis at all. You know, there's no elision for syllables. He's talking slowly and formally because he's a legal guy. He's a State Department guy because he runs a country. So he knows when to be formal. Okay? So his Hebrew is kind of formal. So he's spoken slowly. So there's not much elision. So it's easier to count the syllables. You got that? 14, 14, 14. Hello, Bill Robinson. 14, 14 short. Ta-da! Okay, but now it gets really weird. Because now he's going to go beyond. Oh, I really did. I almost looked for a gun. Why is he going beyond 490? Okay. And this is like 46. Why is it 46? Okay. And this is 62. Well, the 62 makes sense because he's talking about the 62 weeks. And so Gabriel's answering Daniel 9:16 by talking about it as 62 weeks. See, showing that the Lord is turning away his anger and wrath from Jerusalem. It will be rebuilt after 62 weeks. You see, all those numbers in Daniel in English, we don't know where they come from. Why? Because we didn't count the syllables. We didn't count the syllables. Oh, that's too hard and too boring, and we're Christians really just hate God and we pretend we love him. For 2,000 years, we didn't freaking count the syllables. This is included. Yeah, 62 weeks, but Gabriel was counting the syllables, and so was God. Because in keeping with his righteous acts, he turns away his anger when? 62 weeks after. Messiah will be in and will be cut off. Yeah, the grace of the Lord, his righteous acts shown to us, taking on our sins and our disinterest. Oh, but we're well beyond 490 now. You get the hint? We're beyond 490. See, 14 years remained here. Oh, but here's another 46. And here's another 62. And yeah, the 62's got a pregnant meaning and is answered. But it's like after the 490. Yeah, the 62nd week is after the 490. Because there are 2 sevens. And Messiah died 7 years early. Yeah, Paul's going to pick up on this fact. He's going to pick up on this verse. Because he's going to make his meter 434 syllables times 2, 62 right here. Which is after, what? The 490. Is God clever or what? Yeah. See why preterism is toast? And then, of course, we've got another 42 here. Yeah, because Israel's tribulation can't play either. All right? And then we got a 47, and this is the cleverest of all. Paul references this in Ephesians 1:3. And we're going to see it. I'm going to go over it in more detail. See, if Israel missed her appointment and rejected Messiah when she came, he died 7 years early, then there's a 40-year warning period. Okay? So the total of the time that the land gets reimbursed for Israel being 40 years late, okay, is 40 years because the temple wasn't on the land when it should have been. So it gets 40 extra years, and that serves as a warning period. And then we got the 7 that Messiah was killed off early that has to play against it, which is why the temple was destroyed between what Paul is going to tell us as 66 to 73 A.D., which of course it was. That was when the Jewish rebellion began. And what we call 70 A.D. with Titus is really 73 A.D. Yeah. 47 years total allotted to the Jews that remain. Yeah, see? Oh, Lord, listen, forgive, hear, and act. Yeah, he sure does hear and act. 40 years later, 7 years of which, okay, play against the Jews, because the land was only allowed to have the total of 40, but it's like double accounting. Okay? Hear and act. Yeah, he sure did. He sure did. The 47 years remain. Paul's going to pick up on that. See, the meter matters, and it's doctrinal. It helps you know how to read the Bible. And that is where it ends. Dinny. So, where are we going to go from here? In 10E9 through 12 GGS, I'm going to backtrack and show a more comprehensive picture of how Moses, Isaiah, and Daniel are the first three acts of a play. And I start by summarizing the history and how they knew they were counting to the millennium. And that'll take 5 sub-episodes of 10E9 through 12. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Because there's 5 of them. And then I'm going to come back to Daniel and Paul. And we're going to see how all 4 of them tie together. Stay tuned.